Hey, this is Daniel, and boy has it been way too long since I made my last video. I am so sorry. Life happened. I moved, my car got totaled. I've been doing like a ton of weddings this season, so I just have been so busy and I miss making videos. So here I am again. I'm gonna show you guys some really cool tips for kit bashing spaceships and a new way that I found to make it even faster and even easier. I'm basically a really lazy artist. If you watch my other videos, you'll understand what I mean. I recently purchased the Starship Generator add-on for Blender. It's really just a geonode setup that makes a bunch of really cool random shapes with lots of customizable options. I'll show you as I play with it in a minute. And I'm using it as inspiration for an actual kit bash. So it's kind of a weird way of doing it, but I'll show you why it's great and why I love it. So if you're ready to learn some really great tips for Blender and kit bashing, you're in for a treat. Let's get to it. Okay, I've got Blender 3.3.1 open. I'm going to start with the basics of the Random Starship Generator, and then I'm going to show you how I use that to streamline really fast creations of ships that are very unique and different than my normal style, which is always good for creativity. Do something different and try something new. So first I'm going to go Shift A, go to Mesh and Starship. It's right there. Of course, the add-on is installed and enabled and all that stuff. I won't go over that here. And here we go. This is the very first seed, and that looks pretty gosh darn cool, honestly. I think every time you use it, it generates a new seed. So I'm here in the Modifiers tab. And as you can see, it really is just a whole bunch of geometry nodes, modifiers stacked on top of each other. And the very first one is kind of the basic ones, right? Starship control nodes. So we have the seed here. And as I click and go through these seeds, it randomly generates new shapes and puts them in random places and applies things like panels, subdivision. There's minimum and maximum scale, extrusion, taper, octave settings, a lot of options. Honestly, I have barely touched the surface of the settings of the Starship Generator. And I do kind of feel like the Starship Generator is great at making like basic starting shapes, but not really a finished product unless the ship is going to be like far away, you know, like here with some materials, some glowing and some laser stuff. Like it could look great from far away, but close up, you know, it's not really my style. Like this looks cool. Don't get me wrong. I'm amazed at this, how this works, but this isn't really my, my ideal finished quality for close-ups. But it still is incredible. Now, that's probably because I haven't delved into the depths of the settings, and you know, there's probably ways that I could get it better and more polished to like a better finished product. I'm just going to go through these seeds and show a few real quick in a time-lapse fashion. So you get the point. It makes a bunch of really cool shapes that, for me, are a great starting point and inspiration for a ship design. I feel like in fantasy and sci-fi, unless you're just an incredible genius artist that has nothing else to do, you tend to get kind of locked into certain styles and looks, and it can be hard to break out of that. This definitely helps jumpstart my creative process in making spaceships. So I'm not going to spend this video going into all the settings here because there are just so many amazing things to tweak and play with. But I'm happy with this shape here, and I'm going to do my best to build something cool around it. I am going to be kit bashing using one of my kit bash sets, which I do sell online. You can use whatever stuff you have available to yourself. There's some really great free stuff out there, or just make up your own shapes and throw it all together. I've been playing with this technique for a while, and it's been really fun, and I've got some pretty good results from those experiments. So I'm going to use my Sci-Fi Ships Volume 1. And as you can see here, I have a whole bunch of different categories of all the pieces that are organized into different types of pieces. And for those of you who have made a purchase in the past, be sure to go back and re-download it, as I did reorganize and set this all up for assets. I also improved the geometry nodes scattering thing inside that is updated for Blender 3.0 and on. And I made a bunch of other really good minor tweaks, such as UV maps and materials and stuff like that. So go get that if you haven't already. For those of you who bought it over the Cyber Monday and Black Friday weekend, thank you so much. I hope you have fun with it. Let's get started by building some stuff. So I have found from experience, at least with this kit bash, I need to usually size this up by 4 because a lot of these pieces are huge. So I'm going to press S for enter on my numpad, and now it's 4 times bigger. And some of the pieces I found are rotated kind of 90 degrees. So I'm just going to rotate this whole thing by 90 by selecting it, pressing R, Z on the keyboard, and then 90 enter. I guess when I modeled this kitbash, most of my stuff was oriented this way. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Just something that I noticed and saved me time by doing those 2 little steps right there. So I'm going to actually move this to the side. So G, and the green axis from left to right is Y. So if I move something along that line, it's going to go that direction. Now I'm going to build always around my center line. This is the X axis, the red line. That's going to be my center axis of the whole ship, right? The spine. And I like to use that because it's easy to reset stuff to 0, 0, 0, which is in the center of the ship. And then I can just slide it forwards or backwards or to the left or right, and I'll use a mirror modifier to copy stuff from one side to the other really easily. So let's start with the central body of the ship. This is kind of a flattened shape, so let's find something that sort of matches that. We got this chunk, which is nice. Again, I just drag and dropped it from the asset browser. With it selected, if I press Alt-G, it resets the location to 0, 0, 0. So I know that's already right in the middle. Let's try this thing. Yeah, that could be useful, but I'm going to flip it like this. I might use that somewhere. Got this cool chunk here. This may not even be visible, but what the hey, it's in there. Also, I'm going to set my origin point or my pivot point to individual. That way, when I rotate something, it's on its own, its own pivot point. I'm also going to throw in a few pieces over here that I think might fit later on. Okay, let's move on to the body pieces. I always start with the biggest parts of the ship first, and then I work my way into the fun details and accessories, and then eventually sensors and really minor details like windows and ports and possible wires and support struts, things like that. But you got to start with the big boring stuff first and work your way down. Most of the stuff that I make with this kitbash is very scale universal, meaning you can make this as big as a window or as big as a piece of hull, and it should work okay. You will likely have to adjust some of the UV, scaling just so that the texture is uniform and kind of makes sense as far for the scale of the ship. But other than that, a lot of these pieces are pretty universal as to how big they really should be. It's up to you. I like to leave it up to the artist. Here's a nice body piece I think I will use for this front bridge neck piece. Nice. And it doesn't have to be exact. These things don't turn out exactly like my Starship over here. There's always variations and deviations from the original model, and that's okay. Again, I reset that to the center, moved it back and up by using the G command, specifying which axis to move it along, Z, X, or Y. This is already looking very promising and cool. I like this a lot. Pay attention to your overlapping meshes. You may have things overlapping in weird ways like this. It's going right through these vents. I probably don't want that, so I could maybe move this up like that to avoid that collision, and that already looks a little better. I can also flip this sideways and see if I like that better. I'll keep it like this for now. When placing things, I do like to use the orthographic views, which is the numpad 1, 3, 5, 7, things like that. So I'm going to press Control-3 to get a reverse view of the flat. What is this? Technically, this is the left view. That's just because I have things rotated. So I'm going to slice this cylinder down, place it how I want. And perfect. Oh, it's not in there yet. So let's slide that in. There we go. Cool. Now I am going to reverse this on the other side. So an easy way to do that is select your object you want to mirror. Go to modifiers, which is the wrench, add modifier, select mirror. And then we're going to use mirror object and grab something that you know is perfectly centered based on where you want this to be mirrored around. You have to play with the axes sometimes. There we go. Z is the one that we needed for this, just because of the way it was modeled on its side. It needs to be mirrored along the Z axis. And now wherever we move the original, the mirror will copy, which is really great. But be careful, because if you move your central axis object or the mirror object, it will, it'll offset the mirror because it's based on that location. Cool. I think I'm going to try and make maybe 2 of these. So move this down. Alt-D to make a linked copy. Move it up. And these are both a little too big to fit there, so I'm going to scale them down a little bit. I'm going to use a median point. There we go. Cool. Maybe those will be tanks or even weapons. Maybe reverse thrusters. Something that sci-fi ships never have is powerful reverse thrusters so that they don't smash into planets and stuff. As you know, we never see spaceships flip around like they do in the Expanse. So spaceships just magically stop. You know, they have to fire up these huge like Star Destroyer engines to get moving forwards, but then they just slow down and stop. We don't know how. Well, not this ship, sir. Not this ship. All right, moving on. Let's get some more pieces in here. We got to populate this, fill in these gaps. Our engines have some really cool shapes that I love to play with. Let's do this square one is pretty cool. Even if it's not going to be used as an engine, let's put it in that gap. Nice. Okay, we'll mirror that. Add mirror. Select a central object. Fix the axes. Why? No, this one's Z also. There you go. I like that. High detail inside of a cavity is a cool thing. I like that sometimes. Let's duplicate these coming out the other end like this. I just think that looks nice. Maybe we can add a thruster connected to this. Definitely gonna have to fix these origins. There we go, like that. That's intersecting the ship. I don't like that. Never mind, delete it. Here's a cool engine, kind of a double thruster. Let's rotate it on its side. Place it somewhere underneath this thing. Nah, that looks too predictable. I'm going to move it down further. More on the end. Cool. Give it a little space. We can always connect it with like supports and stuff. Let's mirror this bad boy. There we go. We can, of course, pop some thrusters in here. You don't always have to show everything. Sometimes I'll hide stuff halfway. Cool. Let's fill in some of this under area. So in the original, we've got a lot of interesting triangular and cut shapes. This geonodes does do a really beautiful job at making these interesting angled cuts, but I don't really have pieces or a kit yet that is that angular. My stuff is pretty, I don't know how to say it, mechanically sound, militaristic and or functional. So there's not a lot of 45s and 60s and whatever these angles are, and a lot of triangular shapes. But let's see if we can fill in some of the stuff with some cool pieces here. Some of these things we got earlier. Let's flip this one on its side. Let's stick it underneath here and see how it looks. If you press the period on your numpad, it will zoom into your selected object. It's really handy to get in close without manually moving your mouse around. I don't like this intersecting piece here. I may just get rid of that. Yeah, let's get rid of that piece. Not helping me. Let's put this weird like foot shape thing coming out the back. Sometimes I can get away with combining two objects to make them look like one. And that's a good way to get the most out of your kitbash so that, you know, someone that knows your kitbash that you're using can't just scroll through your creations and be like, oh yeah, I know what part they use for that. I know what part they use for that. There we go. That looks cool. I like how those two kind of fit together. Let's put this angled thing underneath here. I'll show you how to stick things onto other things. Assuming your origin point is in a good location, which right now it's on the wrong side. So I'm actually going to show you two cool tips to how to fix the origin point. You bring up your in panel, go to Tools, little Tools tab, check Origin, and now you can move just the origin point. So I'm going to make sure that the origin point is, yeah, that's right where I want it, right there. And now uncheck that. Be sure to do that or you'll be really frustrated later. And let's get this thing positioned. Now to stick it onto a surface that you want, get that out of the way. I want to stick it under here. I don't know if it's going to look good, but I just want to show you how to do this. Turn on your magnetic snap, go to face project and check align rotation to target. And also shift click rotate. Now, if we just press G to move, it's already snapping on this. Now it's actually kind of inside. So I'm going to switch to local, rotate along X 180. There we go. Now it's the opposite of where it was. And it's perfectly lined up with whatever the angle that face is at. So I'm going to turn off my snap, size it down, kind of get it where I want it. And with this at local, it kind of works like normals, where an object has its own orientation that you can slide things along instead of the global. Global is just, always the same, up, down, left, right, forward, back. But this does it according to the object, which is really nice. Cool. I like that piece down there. Let's duplicate that. So mirror. There we go. Awesome. Let's stick this circular engine inside of here, and then I'm going to basically stick that inside of all the square pieces. First, I need to get this nicely aligned. Push it in there enough. Right there. 3 is, to me, a back view, although it's technically the right orthographic view. Select mirror. Grab a central object. There we go. So Y and Z is up and over. Not sure if we can fit this piece somewhere. Ooh, maybe at the nose. That might work. Let's see. It's supposed to be an engine, but says who, right? Got another idea. Let's try this. Ooh. It's a nice shape there. I might fill that in so it doesn't look like an engine. Maybe, just maybe. Another easy way to place an object is select it, and then using your 3D cursor, you can place your 3D cursor anywhere on the surface of an object. I'm going to put it right here and press Shift S and choose selection to cursor. So the selection was that piece, the cursor was on the ship, and now it's right where I wanted it to be. Let's see. Yeah, that way. There we go. Now, depending on how close your render is going to be to your ship, you may want to focus on different types of details or details in certain areas and not in others. For example, if I want a shot of the ship coming towards me, I'm going to focus heavily up here and not so much in the back. Vice versa, if you're just seeing a ship going away, focus on this, do some cool engine stuff, and make it look great on the back end. The whole thing doesn't matter as much. But I do want to add some details to fill in these empty spaces. So I'm going to go to my panels. I really like this one for long areas. Let's see how it does. It's actually really long. I'm going to go to the object, center it on the Y so I know it's perfectly in the middle. Cool, and slide it down. There we go. Again, you don't have to show the whole thing. It's okay. And I actually might just hide. There. Everyone's happy. That looks super cool. Maybe scale it up a little bit. And I'm going to slide it into the ship. That is a nice detail, and I've only used half of that object. I'm going to put these cool clamp things right here on the side. Let's rotate them like that. Make sure that everything fits together like Legos. Awesome. I should have mentioned this earlier, but something that is super important when you're making ships is you got to decide on the scale. Like, how big is this ship? Is this a window right here? Like, could a human being with their body and head look through this window? Or does this have like 10 stories of apartments inside of it? You know what I'm talking about? You got to decide on that scale. And that will kind of guide, hopefully, some of your design choices, some of the accessories. How big are the satellite dishes? How long are the antennas? Windows. Do you really need windows on a ship? Like, these are obviously pretty big windows. If I want this to be a large scale ship, I'm going to remove these or cover them up with something or fill them in so that they don't look like human porthole windows. I kind of like these being windows, but maybe they're still a little bit big. I want this to be a pretty big ship. I like gigantic ships. And this whole kitbash was kind of designed with medium to large size ships in mind. Now my Star Wars ship, kitbash, is made with more medium to small ships in mind. So that's just how it turned out. I don't know. So I'm just dragging and dropping stuff, trying to fill in gaps that catch the eye. When I look at this ship, my eye is kind of like, hey, that's an empty area. It's distractingly smooth and perfect. It needs some imperfections. Like this gaping hole right here needs to be filled with something really badly. Like this. Doesn't fill it all the way? No problem. Use an array to duplicate it easier. There we go. Awesome. Some overlap is okay. No one needs to know. Oh, that looks beautiful. I love that. And now, of course, we got to duplicate it all over the place. So make a mirror down here on the bottom. New modifiers are always on the bottom. Y and Z gets it over there and under there. And I can still adjust my array and all of them will follow. Very nice. I never use this cool blocky thing. I'm going to use this on the underside of the ship. So let's Alt-G it to the center, period to zoom in. Let's move it down, flip it upside down like that. GZ, scale it down. And I think I'm going to put a few of these along the bottom, like some kind of storage unit or something. Let's use an array. Oh, I got lucky, went in the right direction. A little bit of space between each one. There we go, that's cool. Let's get this on the bottom too. Slide it up to the nose, move it down, scale it down. Maybe this can kind of end these blocks. Nice. Make another one down here. Try to be consistent with your designs. Oh, I don't like how that's intersecting right there. I'm actually going to cheat and I'm just going to fix that real easy by just going into edit mode. Sliding it in just like that. Good enough for me. Now, I like to put sensors on the nose of ships. These sensors are rather large in size just because I didn't want them to totally disappear in the project file that you get. So they're a little bit big, but we can always shrink them down. And I like them to be kind of asymmetrical. There we go. Let's see if we can find a cockpit that might fit on here. These cockpits are more for like medium to small ships, but maybe we can fudge one a little bit to kind of fit in the front. Why is this one facing downwards? There we go. Oh, that's not in the middle. Object properties, Y0. Now, once I'm ready to do some renders, I'm going to select my random starship and turn off the render and just hide it. Make sure that it's not going to render. Let's press 0 to see where our camera is. Ooh, not bad. Pretty close. I'm going to select the camera and G to move it down. Maybe RR to make it more focused on the nose. Give it a little tilt. As you're in space, there is no up. Get over it. Let's do a 20mm lens. What I'm doing here to zoom in and out is pretty easy. Press G for move. Z once. Sometimes you have to press it twice. You just kind of filter through the 3 different Z's. One of them is basically a Z straight towards where the camera is facing. I guess it's the camera normal. And that looks pretty cool. I want to make sure that this doesn't look like windshields. Like this is some kind of speedboat in space. So maybe I need to cover this up with something real quick. This is a cool piece I didn't use. I really like this one. Let's see if we can cover up these vents. It's a little better. Should totally use this part somewhere else too. I'm just going to duplicate this one. Move it down. Rotate it that way. And let's use an array. The array is going, if your array is going the wrong direction, which is going that way, just change your factor, 0, 1. Yeah, there we go. That's what I was trying to get. And you can make it a little bit more than 1 if you want a little bit of a gap. Okay, so where was I? 0. Let's go into rendered mode. Space normally only has 1 light source, which is your nearby sun. Unless you have nebula or an explosion or a bright planet reflecting light onto your ship, which is a look I really enjoy. So I'm going to duplicate the sunlight, flip it around towards lighting the bottom of the ship, and I'm going to give that secondary sun a color, which would be the reflective color of the planet. Usually blue-green, something like that. You can make it weaker if you want, and even softer if you want to increase that angle. More of a soft light, whereas the normal sunlight or star is bright and strong and harsh with a 1 degree angle. Cool. Play with your angle to get, cinematic lighting that you like. That one looks pretty cool right there. Some shadows, but not too many. Highlights and shadows are good. Way better than before. Let's check out the texture, see how the texture is doing. It does look good from here. It's definitely filling in those boring flat areas, which was my intention for that texture. I wanted it to really kind of fill in the areas and give it kind of a paneled metallic look. If you want a dirtier ship, you can very easily increase the amount of dirt. Oh, I'm in the wrong texture. Let's go to Sci-Fi Grunge. Here we go. Let's turn up some dirt. Can increase how these things layer on top of themselves. Of course, the scale, the bump. And since almost all these shapes are using that same texture, it's all pretty consistently updated across the ship. There we go. That's a lot of bump line. I might turn that down a little bit. Looking sweet. Now, before we hit our final render, let's add a star field. Switch your shader view to world. Press home to find your nodes. We got a black background going into surface of the world. We want a Voronoi. So press Shift A for add, click search, and type in VOR. There it is. Give it some space because we are going to put a color ramp node here. Type in RAMP, drag the black up just a little bit, and then drag your white all the way to the left. Now we have dots. We want more dots. So change your scale from 5 to 500. Okay, getting somewhere. Let's try 200. And my denoise is making it look pretty funky. So I'm going to go to my material view and turn on scene world so that I can see the material of the world. Looking pretty starry. We can adjust the size of the stars with this black control. And of course, how many or how large the stars are with the scale. I think somewhere around there looks pretty good. And they look nice and random. If you want to layer in some colored stars or some large and small stars, you can easily do that with mixed RGB nodes. You can even add some noise for nebulas to give it some nice photorealism. Oh, I need to turn on scene lights as well. There we go. So this is a material view, which is kind of what Eevee would probably see. Oh, one last thing to add some more wow factor is we got to add some glare and glow. Change your editor to the Compositor. Check Use Nodes. Press Home key to find your nodes. Shift A for add and search type in GLA for glare. Let's change the type to fog glow. Put the threshold down, I don't know, 0.3 something, and hit render. Sweet, not bad for a first render, but I want some more glow. So let's do half this at 0.15. Let's try 0.05, which basically means all bright things are making some glare. And I'm pretty happy with that. Well, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope that was inspirational to you. You can get all the things that I mentioned in the links down below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thanks for watching. Have a great week.